and thank you for tuning in to Theatre Art Society's Talkback for the University of Lethbridge's main stage production of A Suessified Christmas Carol. My name is Bryce Popolars, and I'm the marketing coordinator for TAS, and I'm here with some members of the cast and crew, and we're going to ask some questions. So if you guys don't mind, if you can just go down the line and give our names and pronouns, and I'll on the show.
I'm Kate Carter. I use he, they pronouns, and I was the assistant director.
I'm Geneva Murphy. I use she, her pronouns, and I played narrator too.
I'm George Crawford. I use he, him, and I was Ebenezer Scrooge.
I'm Sarah Barker. I go by she, her, and I play narrator 1.
What's good? I'm Will Thompson. I'm a he, him. I play Bob Cratchit and a few array of other roles. I'm very large.
Hi, I'm Nicole, they, them. I play Jake Marley and a smattering of other things about.
I'm Celine, she, they. I play Belle in smatterings as well.
I'm Ryan. I use he, him pronouns, and I directed the show.
Wonderful. Now, Ryan, this question is for you first. Can you speak to the process of developing the world of the play? Obviously it is Suessified and it takes a lot of cues from Seuss, but there's also a lot of originality there. And I just want to ask you kind of how you found that.
The play was a little intimidating at first because Seuss is pretty well known and there's lots of things, especially around Christmas time. And we're doing it in October, which was so there were lots of things to consider when kind of shaping this up to be, fun, unique, and different. And when I was introduced to the tech elements of the show by our designer Masa, I was kind of like, okay, there's a chance for the actors to be doing something equally as interesting as the holograms and everything. And I encouraged a lot of physical theater and clown work. We did a lot of that during the process to let it jump out. And by the end, this whole team was inputting little physical moments into every second. So it seemed like it was developed and everything, and I said, don't watch any Seuss movies. I said, don't watch Christmas Carol. We watched a few other films before the process started just to kind of get physicality kind of inspired. And then for the rest was just how do we collaborate to make this kind of world of Seuss's trying to make contact with humans, and they try and, it's what is humans like? They're painfully nostalgic. They love screams, all these things, and and then their Seuss culture bleeds in, kind of that. So yeah, I think that's in some.
And now, Kay, can I just ask you, kind of what was it like actually implementing those projections and holograms into the scenes? It's very interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, I've been blown away since the start of the process with Chelsea doing the deepfaking technology. She explained how it all goes into it. She's training AI to do this deepfaking work, and that was crazy to see, but it was really something else when the hologram fans first got working, and you could see that image of Maple way up there. It was such a cool process, and obviously it took a lot of work because we're really using technology that is fresh. It's got a lot of kinks going on, and so it took us a bit of time to kind of get our footing on that, but once it did, I think it was a really cool image for us to be able to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is kind of a bit of a joint question for Maple and George. Maple, what was the process of kind of pre-filming those scenes and then going into rehearsal with that? And then George, what was the process of acting alongside a projection?
I gotta say, I've done pretty much only traditional theater, as you'd call it, in my time, especially here at the university. So just the process of filming in general against a green screen background and everything is so different than anything you've ever done. And it's the Seuss, the rhyming lends itself to such a very physically comedic show, and the constraints of what you can actually do against that green screen to make sure that everything's going to work properly is very small. So having to get the energy across while keeping my emotions within a very confined space was very different from what I'm used to. It was very interesting, but it was an experience that I'm definitely happy to have had and I've learned from. So
It was all right running with the projections. It was definitely different because during all of rehearsal we had Maple reading the lines. So when we came back to it and it was all the old way that they had been saying the lines, I had to refresh how I had been saying them and change how it had been done on stage a little bit. I ended up running them at home for a little bit as well, just so I could get timing down a little bit better. So.
Absolutely. Well, that work really paid off, I would say. Now this is another joint question for Sarah and Geneva. You guys are obviously partners in the show. You have this great partnership going on. And I just wanted to ask you kind of what was the process of like developing that rapport between you guys? Because you guys are in sync.
That's a thinker.
Yeah, that's a
You
thinker.
can start.
I mean, it just kind of happened. We got into the space, and even like during callbacks, we were very like we were very in sync. And then coming to the rehearsal process, we just kind of kept bouncing ideas off of each other. We were like playing pong with ideas constantly, and then we just kind of clicked, and it happened.
Yeah, finding things that matched up really well, but also finding the difference in our characters, the difference of accents or the opposite gestures, opposite costumes, kind of finding that balance. What else is interesting about it? Just I noticed during the bows, when I look over at the cast, I'm like, I don't make eye contact with a lot of these people on stage. Like, I'm always just like, we're always checking in with each other. And yeah, just like in callbacks, we just had like a good pace together. So
Yeah.
just kind of went from there, trial and error. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, Will, I know that near the end things get a little darker, and the tone, even though it's still goofy, it gets a little more serious. So I just wanted to ask you kind of how you balance like the heavy emotional, like kids dying isn't fun. So the heavy emotional stuff with still getting silly.
Yeah. So again, with Ryan's method of these are who's trying to emulate a human world. One of the things we were kind of told to go in there with in that scene is to be very melodramatic. You watch a lot of these movies where the actors will go, oh my gosh, oh, and we really wanted to kind of key into that for that scene and kind of have it emulate this very emotional movie scene. So that's kind of the balance we were finding. And then, again, with, I think Cratchit he evolves a little bit throughout the show in the way he acts. And he acts different around his family. Obviously, he acts very different around Scrooge. But then when, Timmy is gone, that's kind of when we get to really tap into that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Celine, among many other people, you play several different characters.
Yeah.
And they're all so varied and so different, like just in age and in demeanor. So I just wanted to ask you kind of like how you went about developing all those different people.
Ooh, that was a really fun process. I think like Brian was saying, we did a lot of physical theater work, and that was fantastic. We explored the idea of like each character has a different gesture, but there's kind of like a thorough line with all those gestures through the characters. And so that was a really sick base to play off of. So like, I don't know if you saw me going like this at one point, but like this evolves into like this, or it's like, it like also like goes up here and that kind of thing. So for me, it's like as soon as I had the body of the character and how the character moved, then I could figure out kind of how the characters thought and that kind of thing. And I think going off of like talking about creating that who base, it was a really fascinating lens with like, okay, I am trying to think like this who, and then I'm trying to think like how this who thinks about the rest of the characters, and I think that layering really helped with the comedy. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now, finally, this is just something we like to do in all our talkbacks. If we can just go down the line and just say what our favorite part of the show was. Yeah.
Oh man. I got a really great shirt. Anyways, I think what I enjoyed most is everybody's commitment to the process. Like when we all sat down and talked about it, there was a lot of like, lots of like, this is a lot to digest and stuff. And we had a super long tech week. And whenever you get into a long tech process, you're always worried that just the drain can be really real. So you're really just kind of worried, like when you get up to like that again, that like did we lose anything? And quite the opposite, really. Everybody's characters were quite informed. I know I wasn't going to move on to the deck unless I was happy with everybody with a bit solid base for every character that played in or who. So if anything, what I'm happiest about is how much it grew after tech and after that process, and how much it was like in everybody and how everybody worked together. And yeah, the whole team from cast creative to backstage really just fire on all cylinders when we finally got up there. So yeah, long-winded to start.
Oh, I think my favorite part of the show was just like all the little bits in the show, because it's obviously comedy, and then there's people like leading the comedic bits in each scene, but there's just like everyone is doing something funny, and there's always something like little to pick out, and I just think it's fantastic. We've added so many bits that it kind of feels like a mosaic. It's so hard to pick a specific favorite little bit that people do, but I feel like I gotta pick one. Achilles, who isn't currently here, they have this like laugh in the Cratchit scene when Jimmy's dead, and it sounds to me like a bullfrog, and it's just so funny because everybody's laugh is like so distinct, and it's like what I was talking about with the whole like there's so many little good bits. I know it's supposed to be a crying soundscape, but to me it almost sounds like a jungle, which I just think is so funny, and I think that's one of my favorite bits in the show.
Oh yeah, it's me. Okay. I really enjoy everything in the show, but I think what I have to say my favorite part is the moments kind of off stage between, either at intermission or just during pre-show when everyone's getting their makeup and things on. I ended up accidentally getting myself into a bit of a pre-show ritual where I would play around as my little Who character that I've made. I would go and check in with like every single crew member and every single actor, and then go scare the crap out of Oakley because we're 2 minutes to house open and I'm standing on the stage staring up at the booth. And that was my check-in for Oakley. So I hope you appreciate it. But yeah, it was just a great time really getting to know everyone and getting to work with everyone, and I really hope to work with so many of these people again. So.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a variety of things, but I think specifically, really just trying to be silly and just get into character and just try and find all the little bits of what you can do with this and how should I do this and getting feedback. That was really fun. And then, on another note, again, just like Maple, backstage, just hanging out with everybody, just getting calm, just kind of, I'm always thankful for the crews that I have because, usually if you don't really have a crew that you can really kind of get down with and hang out with, it's a bit tougher, you know what I mean? So it's really great, it's really fun, especially like doing the makeup and stuff like that, especially today, so those are what I really enjoy, generally.
Yeah, for me, I just love the comedy of this show. As I was describing this show to everyone who I was trying to convince to get tickets, I'm like, this show is ridiculous in the best way possible and in every way possible. I just love playing around with how silly and goofy we could get. Like, in no other show have I dived into a coffin, dived under a curtain. I've never been able to have the chance to be this silly, wild, and zany, and I've just loved every second of it, and I've loved the comedy of just this group. Like, I would leave rehearsals with, like, literal stomach pains from laughing so much. And this cast and crew is just incredible, and yeah, I just loved the entire thing.
I loved a lot of things about this show. I would say some of the bits that were my favorite are like anything to do with the coffin or Achilles' Cratchit child, which is Nip. Just hearing them breathe on stage is enough to make me crack. But I think it's like the set and the costumes. I think were like honestly my favorite. I loved seeing everybody in costume every day. They were so wild and wacky, and I think that's really my favorite.
For me, it was taking each line and making some sort of choice with it, some way to animate it, or like what kind of voice should I do. So I got to play around with a bunch of variety of voices, different accents I could do, different ranges I could do. I would say that was my favorite part, was finding a way to animate every single beat of that show. That took a lot. Like going home after rehearsal every day, after giving offers to Ryan, offers, and just figuring out the next thing I could do. Like, okay, I nailed that bit, that was great, I'll do that for this time. What about this line now? What can I do to make this line stand out more? So that was something that went up until my shower last night, was finding new bits, the discoveries of different character choices.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in a rehearsal process in my life. I feel like every day there was just so many more funny things for us to all just die at. There are a couple scenes that, without a doubt, always had Ryan and I just like dying laughing. It was almost hard to give notes sometimes. But some of those scenes were like the bystanders scene where they're talking about Scrooge's funeral, or the Timmy death scene, or Fred's party. Like those three scenes were just always absolute riots, and so it was like so much fun to just get to be a part of that whole process.
It was wonderful. Great answers, guys. So so that's gonna wrap it up. I am Bryce Popelars with Theater Arts Society. Stay tuned for our next talkbacks, which will be Yistia and Parents. Right on.